Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of An Intellectual Life with Cait and Kaelyn, where we discuss lifelong learning and delve into the day-to-day of scholars in the making. How we doing today, Kaelyn?
I'm going to be straight with you. I'm feeling a little bit hormonal today, of all days, but we're here. We're going to talk about journals. It's a week before the symposium. I am definitely lacking a little bit of sleep, but I am very happy to be hanging out with you.
Oh, let's not even go down the symposium stress way. It's
It's
too
going to be
real. The
great.
emotion, it's going to be great. The emotions are too real at this point, but it's going to be wonderful. I'm really looking forward to it. I also am almost certain that I've got at least 20 new grey hairs that have come from the
I,
symposium.
girl, I don't want to talk about it. I haven't been able to go get my hair done. There's just no time. Like
There's no time.
I had a dissertation deadline. There was just no way. So I have the most root, and you can see all of my little gray hairs just like popping to the floor, like just like sprouting from the wood. And it is what it is, man.
I mean, this is so divergent, but I have a box dye that I have had since COVID because of COVID,
Yeah,
because
because of
hairdressers
COVID.
were closed. And I was like, do I test this? Is now the right time? Because I tried to book a hair appointment and they're full. So it's not even that I can go and get my hair done before the symposium. This is a real, like, these
You
are
know what?
really
This is real first world problems right here.
real first world problems. But anyway, I'm tempted. I am real tempted.
You know what? Just think about it this way. It humbles us.
It does.
We're just gonna go. We're just gonna go into the symposium. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna see all our people. We're just gonna show up as we are.
Show
It's
us
gonna
as
be
we
great.
are, warts and all.
Warts and all.
Love it. Absolutely love it. All right. Well, I am super excited to dive into today's discussion. We're going to be talking about something we both really, really love, which is journaling and journal ecosystems. And I'm really excited about this topic. Last week's topic, where we talked about whether book talk enhances or hinders literary culture. Such a fantastic discussion, but obviously is something that can kind of verge on the sense of like, which side do we stand? And it's always a very controversial thing for anyone who's talking about it. I can't really see anyone hating on a journal. So you know what? I'm really excited to just embrace the very positive life of journaling and analog and handwriting. It's just right up my street. So I'm real excited about it. But let us dive into our weekly digest sections. Kaelyn, what are we drinking?
I think I was having this last week, but my partner and I make cold brew tea and we keep it in the fridge at all times.
Stunning.
We are on the weaker end of this tea cycle because we do reuse the tea leaves. Yeah, please guys, don't just use tea leaves once. They deserve to be used multiple times. But
Love it.
yeah, it's just a spicy way to
Spicy
make
cold brew tea.
make a glass of water a little bit more fun. What are you drinking?
I have finished, unfortunately, my second cup of coffee today, and I would really love a third. But that is for post podcast. But yes, I'm on the coffee kick at the moment. I have been drinking. My sister owns a coffee shop in South Africa, where they roast their own beans, and she always keeps me stocked up with really, really delicious South African coffee. So I have been on that rabbit hole. I'm almost finished the dark roast package that I brought back with me the last time I visited her. So, it's going to be hard to go back. Let me tell you. Such good coffee. Amazing. Let us dive into books. What are we reading? How's Jilly Cooper?
I'm really loving Julie Cooper. It is, I will say, very politically incorrect for the 21st century. There's a couple of things that, yeah, stuck out like a sore thumb, but it's been a good exercise actually in being able to acknowledge where like some of the language that's used. For example, they're at the Olympics, and she's talking
Yeah.
about all of the different nations coming in for the opening ceremonies, and it's the same very, very British way of describing Africa as a nation.
Yes.
And things like that, but in a way it was actually very intellectually kind of stimulating to be reading along and acknowledge those flaws in her own reasoning, in the kind of 80s view of race, sex, etc. And it's kind of like going back and watching Sex and the City in a way.
Yeah.
Where those things now stand out to you, and you have to kind of grapple with why was this deemed like socially acceptable at the time?
Yeah.
What has changed in the way that we speak about these issues? So anyway, I've been really enjoying it. I am like 45 pages from finishing, or maybe less. I nearly stayed up way too late, like almost all night, reading the book and nearly finishing it last night. But I decided that I needed to cool my jets, and at 1 a.m. I decided to pull the plug and go to sleep. But I'm nearly done with it. And instead of immediately jumping to Rivals, I'm basically using Jilly Cooper as my like fun kind of palate cleanser.
Your palate cleanser read, yeah.
Yeah, and I've been really enjoying it. But now I'm really kind of itching for something a little bit more challenging in terms of subject matter. Because Jilly Cooper, I will say, it's a very enjoyable read. So I have a couple of books. The first of which is Homeseeking by Carissa Chen. And basically, this is like second chance romance, but set across China, Taiwan, and California.
Perfect.
In the late 20th century. So we're actually reading this for the Modern Chinese History Reading Group in Accepted. So
Amazing.
You know this, but if people on the podcast may not know, that Accepted Society actually has working groups now where you can get together with others and either break down an article or, form a specific kind of intellectual reading group with the intention of it being about learning a new subject rather than it just being for the pleasure of reading itself. So we're reading this one. Normally we read nonfiction, but we've been kind of sprinkling in fiction, nonfiction over the month. So I'm really excited to continue reading that. I have started it, and to just having a really great discussion about it the next couple of times that we come to the podcast, but also in particular getting Ezra's take on it. Ezra is a member of Accepted who studies Chinese, or more specifically, history of Hong Kong and prostitution in, I believe, the late 19th century, early 20th century. So very excited to chat with her. And since we're going to Oxford, I have picked up, well, I've had it for a while, but Evelyn Waugh's Brideshead Revisited.
Brideshead? Oh, it's amazing.
Oh. You were actually with me when I picked this up.
Yes.
I think almost 2 years ago now, and I have not read it yet. So it looks like a very digestible read, but it's essentially set in Oxford. So I thought it would be a fitting novel to read while we are there. And then lastly, I picked up the works of Stephanie Dray and Laura Comoy. They basically write historical fiction novels centered around women in the American colonial period, or more specifically the Revolutionary period. And so they've written one on Thomas Jefferson's daughter, and they also wrote one about Eliza Hamilton. And that one's huge. That one's like twice the size of this one. But I got really excited because I had actually really wanted to write a book about Abigail Adams. And then as I was actually outlining a potential novel, I found out that Stephanie Dray and Laura Comoy had come out with A Founding Mother, which is about Abigail Adams. So I've shelved that idea to leave it to the masters. But I'm very interested to read it. I do find historical fiction really difficult to get into when I know a lot about the subject matter. So I'm trying my best to actually read more fiction within my time period, but I am finding it challenging. So this is my uncomfortable read. Not because it's not good or that it's not well researched. I have no idea, but I just find it distracting. So what are you reading? What are you reading when you come to Oxford?
Oh, I've got so many. The problem it's not a problem. It's not a real problem. It is kind of a problem. It's not a real problem. But the problem is that I have had Lainey come to stay, Tally come to stay, Laura's here now, and the only time I ever buy books is when I go with friends to the bookshop. So I have bought a fair few new books, and I want to read all of them. So,
okay, what are some of the standouts?
So I recently picked up, I don't have it with me, it's downstairs, but I recently picked up the International Booker Prize winner this year, the Taiwan Travelogue.
Oh yeah, I'm reading it. We should buddy read it.
I am so desperate to get into it. It looks so good. I love the layers that it's about, and yeah, so I'm desperate to get into that. I also convinced Laura to pick up I think it's called Pandora's Box, or Pandora. It's something Pandora. It's a female retelling of Greek myth of Pandora. I'm really, really desperate to get into that one. I also picked up recently, oh gosh, it's going right out of my head. It's another Fitzcarraldo edition. Oh, it's Brian Dillon's essays from Fitzcarraldo, and I really want to get into it. But I am so into 100 Years of Solitude. I am maybe just over 100 pages left of this book. I've been listening to it on the audiobook and reading it, which has been so fun. I've loved this. I've absolutely loved this. This is probably one of the best books from the Humanist Readers Book Club that I've read this year. I have loved it so much. In particular, I was really kind of skeptical when I started it. Magic realism is not really my kind of area that I enjoy reading about, but it's so subtly done and it's so clever. And in particular, there is one chapter that I've just read which concerns one of the daughters, Remedios, and her description of being this kind of pure maiden woman, so beautiful, so innocent, so chaste, so desirable, but just so oblivious to men. And I loved it so much because she's so clever. She's actually so witty, and she just doesn't care. There's this fabulous scene. This isn't a spoiler because there's nothing really that happens, but there's this fabulous scene where she's in the bathroom, like washing herself, and this man climbs on top of the roof, removes the roof tile to like watch her bathing herself, and she is totally unconcerned about the fact that this man is watching her bathe, except for the fact that she's like, the roof tiles are rotten, you're going to fall and die, basically. And goes on about it. He's completely obsessed with her because she's so beautiful, and he begs her to marry him at the end of this whole palaver. And she's like, well, no, I'm not going to marry a man who's simple enough to watch me bathe for an hour.
Amen,
I was like,
girl.
I love that. I think that is so clever. And then he ends up falling from the roof and dying. And she's like, well, yes, he was simple.
Love
Pop
it.
off. I loved it so much. I'm so happy. Anyway, I'm really enjoying this. This is so much fun. It's dark, but it's just a really incredible look at how communities are formed. It's a fabulous look at what technology does to communities. It's amazing to look at what commerce does to communities, what capitalism does to communities, how history and tradition are written over after generations and generations. And I'm obsessed. I'll probably finish it before we go to Oxford, so I probably won't bring it along with me. I'm also really, really close to finishing Pond by Claire Louise Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
This has been very interesting. Such interesting little pieces of writing. I think my favorite has been Stir Fry. It's literally 2 lines, which is, I just threw my dinner in the bin. I knew as I was making it, I was going to do that. So I put in it all the things I never want to see again.
Beautiful.
Quintessential. Love it. Absolutely love it. And then I've been diving into The Tower by Thea Lenarduzzi. I think that's how you say her name. I'm probably butchering it. But I jumped into this straight away and I'm loving every minute of it. I'm still new to it. I'm probably only 5 or 6 pages into it. Amazing. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So, thought for the week. What is swimming around your brain?
Ooh. I keep coming back to the concept of archives. And more specifically, the development of one's personal archive. Because I was working on a video yesterday for Paper Republic on my dissertation diary. And basically, this kind of connects with the conversation we're about to have about journals, but essentially, we think of journals often as, a place where we get to, get our ideas out. It's a place where we get to return to memory. But as I was thinking about the dissertation diary in particular, I have written and rewritten and redrafted and reworked an outline a million times over. And I have evidence of every draft of that, which would be essentially flattened, if not eliminated, by having it in a digital copy. And I was thinking about specifically the dissertation, like the archive of my dissertation, and thinking about all of the different drafts and iterations, because every time I work on a draft, if it starts making really big developmental shifts, I actually move it to a new document and I say that that's like V1, V2, V3. But it just kind of goes and ends up sitting in Google Drive.
Yeah.
And that is an archive in and of itself to an extent. But I've been thinking a lot about the accumulation of a physical archive. And essentially, when somebody is no longer with us, what they leave behind and how their families would reconcile the physical material of their being.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm thinking about right now. It's the concept of legacy. It's also prompted by, there was a Substack note that I saw this morning, and I keep thinking about it because basically the person said, on Substack there are PhDs, world-class researchers, world-class journalists, somebody trying to sell you a course on Substack growth. And then there's me, a father of 3, just trying to get my thoughts out so that way my children have something to look back on. And I was thinking about the fact that his children would have to go to Substack to go find this source.
These archive, yeah.
And it's public. And my mom actually had a blog when I was a child, around the time that she had divorced my dad. And every once in a while, I will actually go back to that blog because it's still online, luckily. But I always think about, what if this wasn't online? And there's all of these like musings and beautiful letters and things that my mom was thinking about in relation to motherhood and talking about, something I said or something my sister did, an argument that we had. And that would just be lost in the like deep well of the internet if I didn't know that blog existed.
Yeah.
And just feeling like there's something so important about keeping a physical manifest of these thoughts. So that's where my head's at today.
I feel like we should dive straight into our segment for today, because this is obviously talk straight to it. My thought is not nearly quite as I suppose meaningful at this point. I'm I'm still really reeling with this kind of, you and I have discussed this at length, not on the podcast, and we probably should at some point, but we've discussed this at length in our calls about what can be done to shift the importance of humanities. And it's something that was prompted by a discussion that I had with my husband, with Jonathan, this morning. We were talking about AI, and I'm kind of, I don't have a formed thought at this point, but I'm essentially reeling with the idea of I've got to find a solution, because I recently met up with a former colleague of mine from Google, and we had coffee, and the discussion was around AI and all the stuff that's happening in the tech space. And my mum, I talked to my mum, and she's focused. She's, she works in a corporate. She works for one of the big 4 accounting firms. And that topic of discussion is also around there all the time. And I just keep coming back to the fact that I'm like, I cannot go back into this world. I cannot. I've been in it for 10 years. I've seen what it does. I've seen the soullessness of it. Yeah. And the absolute and utter pointlessness of the day-to-day for these for the work that you do. And for me at least, that is my perspective, and I can't go back to it. So I've got to figure out a way.
How do you build an alternative?
How do I build an alternative? And because there's no other option. I've got to do something, because I cannot go back. So that's my morbid thought for the week that I'm reeling over.
Oh, I think we just need to have. I just think we have to have a discussion about both of our Substack articles last week.
I know. We should put that on the schedule.
Maybe we should. Because my marketing brain feels very hopeful. Because to me, I'm like, it's just a matter of PR. Like, we just need to change the PR around the humanities. And yeah, that's. We're gonna go down like a massive rabbit hole if we go
let's
here.
Not. Let's
reel it back.
Reel it back in.
we can add it to the topic list for one of the future discussions, because I do think it's one that we both feel very passionately about, and we have very similar, I guess, aims, but maybe different approaches.
Absolutely. So, favorite thing from the week?
Oh, favorite thing from the week. Frozen yogurt.
Yes.
I grew up in the early 2000s in the pinkberry era of California.
Yes,
and
please.
I used to spend the afternoon, my sister and I, when I first got my driver's license, we would go after school and we'd go get froyo at Pinkberry at Stanford Shopping Center. And they've just like gone away. The froyo shops are just no longer holding their place. But there is one like frozen yogurt van that parks outside of Tottenham Court Road Station. And so I had a delicious, fabulous frozen yogurt last week with some mango, and it was absolutely delightful. And that's my favorite of the week. What about you?
You've just taken me down nostalgia lane, because we never had, what was it, pinkberry in the States? Is that what it's called? We had, in South Africa, we had wakaberry.
Wakaberry.
Wakaberry was literally my stopping off point every single day after university, no matter what. It was so phenomenal. It was so phenomenal. I miss it so much. It was just exceptional.
It was a perfect treat.
It was. Oh, I love that. My favorite of the week. Okay, I'm going to be superficial for a second.
That's okay.
But I tried a new skincare product that I am absolutely obsessed with. Tally got me onto it. I've never been a Medicate person. I don't know if you've ever tried anything from Medicate.
I've never tried it, but I've I see it at the shops.
It's all Tally's fault. Love her to death. It's her fault now. She has gotten me onto this. I have tried their vitamin C serum. I've never been a vitamin C person, but their serum is so beautiful. I feel like it just brightens everything up and it makes me feel really, really good. Whether it does anything, I don't know, but we'll see. And then I tried their retinol, which I had such a bad experience trying the Ordinary's retinoid serums. Mm-hmm. They just messed with my skin so badly, dried it up, red, spotchy, unhappy space. This retinol serum, I don't know if it's placebo, I don't know if it's in my head, but ever since I've done it, I'm like, where have these little fine line wrinkles from my eyes gone? What is happening? Why do I feel so youthful and like exuberant in my skin? I don't understand. Look, pseudoscience, placebo effect, I don't care, but it's working and I'm using it to my advantage.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So that has been my favorite for the week. Now, what are our goals? How was last week? What is the plan this week?
Okay, so my goal last week was to get 5 pages of chapter 5, and I got absolutely 0. No words on the page. However, this is why I think journals are so freaking important, because I was going back and reviewing basically how I had started chapter 4 and like basically try to map out like the process and how long it took and why it took so long. And I've just come to the realization and have decided to acknowledge and accept that my process is a lot of reading and processing and analyzing and going into the primary sources and mapping that out and thinking through it. And it just takes time.
Yeah.
That said, I do have to get this dissertation done. But what I did over the past couple of months was that I really wanted to provide myself with more positive evidence that I was capable of writing a significant amount in a single day. Because I used to be able to write easily 10, 15-page papers in a weekend. And I just simply have not been able to do that kind of volume. And that's just because I'm writing something that is an entirely different structure. It's entirely different in form. And what I found in working on chapter 4 is that I can, in fact, write 1,000+ words in a day. I can't do it every day. What the pattern was is that I tended to write 1,000 to 1,500 words, and then I would write 200, and then I would write another, and then it would be 200. So I now recognize that as a pattern, and I have the trust that if I give myself the time and the space to like mull over the ideas and process everything, I will be able to write, and I will be able to write in Oxford. I just can't assume that I'm going to be able to write every single day. It's just not the way my brain is wired. So my goal for the next week is to simply process, analyze, absorb as much of the information for chapter 5 as I can and start to ideally get words on page when we're doing the writing retreat in Oxford. So just giving myself, I wouldn't say it's necessarily giving myself grace. It's just acknowledging what actually works rather than trying to just shove myself into the way of thinking of productivity and scholarship that I was, I guess, trained to assume was the way to do it.
Yeah.
So, what about you?
Absolutely.
Pictorialism?
No, nothing happened. I can't. I'm hitting a wall with this.
I think it's time to move on. Just move on to the next thing. You can come back.
I'm moving on. Bender can go and take a bend. Let me tell you, I am so done.
That's all right, man.
So, you know what? I'm going to steal your goal here as well. I'm just, we're leading up to the symposium. There is a lot of admin that we've got to do. We're both writing keynote presentations and speeches. I'm just going to read where I can, absorb where I can. And then for the writing retreat, knock out this methodology section because it needs to get off my plate now, and writing retreat is the perfect spot for it to do exactly that. Yeah,
exactly.
So amazing. Well, before we go on to our seminar section, we are going to take a quick break. We will be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. We are going to be talking about journaling ecosystems and what the hell the hype is around journaling ecosystems. I feel like we're the worst people to talk about this, Kaelyn. We're just so obsessed.
Well, what's so funny, but actually what's interesting to me is that I didn't get the hype at first. Like I was in Oxford with you and you were showing me your journal. I was like, that's beautiful.
Nice.
That's nice. I did not understand or like really get what the deal was. And so actually I feel like it's more of a rich conversation because I've come to it as a skeptic.
That's so true. That is so true. So I mean, what is it that like brought you into it? What was the thing that converted you?
So I guess when I thought of journals, so there was two ways that I thought of journals and notebooks. Journals, I always thought this is just a diary. This is just a place where you record your thoughts, your feelings, etc. And I had already established a bit of a practice of that. And, you know, I felt like I have my YouTube channel. I have like all these different ways that I kind of process these things. And maybe like that's other people's way of processing those emotions, but I have other mediums to do so. And the notebook is where somebody records their notes for a class, for a lecture, etc. It was actually kind of diving into the content around journaling ecosystems that I began to see the form of the journal as something quite unique, and that the process is actually the point, and the mess is the point. And I used to have a roommate in college, Chloe, who used to keep a junk journal, or she used to like scrapbook. And I thought it was, you know, I thought it was very nice, but I was like, I have YouTube, I have my phone. But I started to really, as I said earlier in the episode, really value having a physical manifest of these flashpoints in your life, in your thoughts. And what really got me into it was that I moved away from doing my weekly reset and my quarterly reset in Notion and started keeping it as a journal, and realizing that I had this really kind of beautiful trove of all of these different, you know, points in my life that it's so much more enjoyable to go back and look at when it's in a physical planner or in a physical journal. So that's kind of what got me started on it, was actually seeing the examples of how people were using it and beginning to see the journal less as a diary or as just like a place to write down notes, and more so essentially your second brain, but thinking about it in less of in the technical term of who was the person who came up with the second brain?
Oh, Matt. No, I'm confusing people.
I can't remember the exact name, but essentially somebody has trademarked the second brain and created a template in Notion. And that was my way of thinking about how to offload your thoughts and like keep them somewhere. And now I actually see the value of having the physical manifestation of that second brain rather than keeping it on a computer.
Absolutely. I think that's, I mean, I remember for me, so I started, I had the second brain on Notion. That was the first like thing that I kicked off. And it was such an interesting experiment, because I did feel like it was a prompt for me to start externalizing the process, the idea of ideation, that friction of thinking about things and having that record external. And it worked for a number of years. I mean, if you have a second brain in Notion or in any other note-taking platform, it's going to work. It's not like it's not going to work. But
it depends on the purpose. And I guess the purpose changed.
Yeah, the purpose changed. And I think what really transformed it for me was I was starting my master's at Oxford, and I had gone, before I'd gone to Oxford, I'd gone to visit my friend Beck in London, and I was staying with her, and she has been journaling since she's probably a teenager, I think, or probably earlier. She's had journals her entire life. And ever since I've known her, she's journaled. And she was talking me through it, and I was kind of thinking, oh, this is really, really great. She just writes down her reflections of the day or anything that's kind of going on in her brain and that kind of thing. And I got to Oxford, and I thought, wouldn't it be great to have this archive of my time during my master's? Not a dear diary on this day I did that, but literally to see the start and the first entry that I have in that journal. I've still got it. It's in my journal archive box that I have in there. But my first entry was after matriculation at Oxford, and I kept that journal going all through my master's at Oxford. It's literally got pieces in there the whole time. But I remember very keenly, there was one moment that will always stand out for me. And I was sitting down in my journal. I was struggling with an essay topic for one of my assignments. And I just started writing it out as a narrative. I was like, this is what I'm struggling with. This is the gap. This is why it's irritating me. This is why I can't get to a resolution. And as I started to kind of brain dump that onto the page, all of a sudden the idea became clear about what I wanted to write about. And that moment in my brain really stuck with me, because I thought, well, what have I done here? What's different? Why could I not figure this out sitting in front of my Notion dashboard, where I did the trick that you told me right at the beginning, was whenever there's an open question, write it down, put it in a dashboard, keep it in a list. That's what I was doing. I was sitting in front of that list, and I was like, why can't I figure out what I want to write about? And then all of a sudden, just sitting back, writing this out by hand, it just became clear all of a sudden. That tension in that moment was released just from the action of writing. And it was truly, like, it was so transformative, because then all of a sudden it wasn't just about journaling out the feelings. It was about journaling out the process, the thought process.
That's what it's been. That's the transformation that it's been for me, is realizing that it is not a fully formed thought when you put your pen to paper, and creating a space where you can just get the messy process out of your head and onto a piece of paper. It actually is interesting to me that when I first started, I found it very difficult to think about, like, what kind of structure am I going with? Like, how do I really formulate the page? I got this new journal for my research. This isn't for my dissertation. This is just for research, for articles that I want to write, just playing around with my ideas. And when I opened up that first page to a new notebook, I just stared at it and I was like, what the hell do I do? What do I write down? And it's been such a helpful kind of process to just be like, just put the pen on the paper. Doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter how, and just see what comes up. And last week I was working on that Substack article titled "Are Universities Still Worth Fighting For?" And I was trying to figure out, what's the progression of this article. There was something I wanted to get out of it. I wanted it to show the statistical reality of universities, like careers in academia, but I also wanted it to end on this hopeful message, and I could not figure out in my heart of hearts how to get there. And putting pen to paper and just kind of breaking it down really helped solidify the flow and what I wanted to say. And I was reminded of the note-taking process that I had when I was in undergrad, before I started using an iPad, before I started really getting into Notion. And these tools all have a purpose, but now I actually think that there's such value to friction.
Yes.
And there are certainly ways where, for example, with just the pace that things go, there are digital tools that we need in order to write at the pace, take notes at the pace, etc. But in trying to create a system that has kind of favorable friction, where I do have to sit with the idea and I have to process it by hand, it feels like I have a more intimate relationship with the idea itself. And that's what I've really found to be quite just really special about using journals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there is something to be said about the idea of the act of writing is that means of process. So whether you're looking at ideas that are for articles or stuff that you're exploring research wise, it's also the basis by which a lot of people do journal out their thoughts, their emotions every single day to deal with things that have happened in their life. And I know for me, when I started going back to therapy last year, it was through the journal that I was actually able to deconstruct a lot of my childhood trauma by writing it out, by writing out letters to myself, to the people that hurt me, all that kind of thing. And that process, as you say, that friction of writing is a means of creating that. I talk about this so much on my YouTube channel, where I talk about that friction, that writing process. I'm curious though, both you and I kind of came back into journaling a bit later on.
Yeah.
But did you have journals when you were a child, or did you have notebooks when you were a child that you used?
Not really. When I was a kid, I did a lot of drawing, actually. Yeah, I used to draw quite often, and I would take notes and things insofar as it related to school, but never for my own purpose. It wasn't until I think when I started my master's degree, I started really keeping a diary. I have one journal from when I started at UCLA, but it's very spotty. I put it down for 6 months, pick it up, etc. Oxford was the first time that I had a dedicated notebook where I started writing down my thoughts every once in a while. And it's interesting to me that the process has been this kind of gradual build up towards this daily practice. But I think I often offloaded a lot of that work, like the kind of internal and creative manifestation of those thoughts, through videos. So
through the YouTube channel, right?
Yeah. But it's what's nice about having the journal, and I guess I had not necessarily identified this, is that there are a lot of things I actually don't share on YouTube. Things related to my friendships, things related to my family, things related to my health that I don't talk about on social media. And that's intentional. The focus of my YouTube channel and the focus of my content is really about encouraging people to engage with the humanities. And it feels like a bit of a distraction to talk about such personal matters. But also, it's nice that it's just mine. And
Yeah.
what I found in keeping a journal more recently is that it's a space where I don't have to think about, I guess, the respectability of how I'm putting it together.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have both of those outlets. And I will say that I've been editing videos. I've been posting YouTube videos actually since I was 12.
Yeah. Because you had a horse riding channel first.
Because I used to have many horse riding channels. Because I couldn't make up my mind, and I used to change channels like every 6 months. But I didn't.
I'm just laughing because this is something you do today. Not that you change channels every 6 months, but every 6 months is a new something.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. She needs a rebrand every once in a while to keep things exciting. But no, I didn't really. Did you?
No. I look back. I have to say, I don't want this to go down the way of it, but you know, when I was a child, I didn't read, I didn't write, I didn't draw, I didn't have any creative outlet. And I kind of look back on it and I kind of think to myself, well, in retrospect, I was just surviving day to day.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But there is a part of me that kind of wishes that I had, like, I don't think I even have any drawings or anything that I did as a child, or, you know, I don't ever remember being that kid that drew pictures, you know, like sat and drew things or painted or did any of that stuff. And I didn't start reading until I was preteen. So yeah, no, this was a real shift for me when I started journaling, when I started with the journal for Oxford. It, you know, without maybe over dramatizing it a little bit, it was probably the best possible thing that could have happened for me at that point. Just this idea of having that safe space to as you say, be unfiltered and talk about things that are personal to you that I don't always want to share out in the open. No, I didn't know, not as a child. But now, obviously, have multiple journals. So,
okay,
should we talk about our ecosystem?
I want to talk about the ecosystem. I want to talk about the material reality, the consumerism around the hype of journal ecosystems. So I guess I'll kind of walk through mine. And for those that are listening, I'll try to describe these as best as possible. So first and foremost, I have my new research journal, which is an A4 portfolio from Paper Republic. And for those that are in America and are listening, an A4 is a gigantic version of the US letter paper. It's huge. Like this is like the size of my torso.
You know how I was probably only it was only 2 weeks ago or so that I realized there was a difference in paper size between...
Are you serious?
No, genuinely. I didn't know that there was a US letter paper size. I didn't understand. Yeah.
No, it's so much smaller. So it's it was very confusing to me. And for a while I didn't really see the value in getting an A4, but I actually have been using it for my mind maps for research. And sometimes I actually put stuff for the dissertation in here if it's like needs a bit more space to breathe. Yes. And it's been really enjoyable because I wanted a dedicated space to start working on research projects, my creative writing projects. I've been working kind of slowly on a novel for the last 2 or so years. So that's what this is for. And then I have essentially what I call my memory journal, which is a botany green. What would you call this in terms of a green color? It's like a...
I think it's the botany green, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like a brighter, more Kelly green, I suppose, for those that are listening. And inside I have my commonplace book, and I have my memory book, which is essentially my junk journal with a bunch of, image memories, cards. I have this beautiful page from the Accepted Symposium, and it's just writing down little memories and things. I will say it is very time consuming, but it is more than worth it. So that's my little memory journal. I have my dedicated dissertation diary, which is very simple. It's just another cognac A5 portfolio. And it's just my dissertation. It's
just notes. Just notes,
It's like timelines. There's like notes on Virginia demography. I've got like a timeline of the tobacco boom and the cost of tobacco over time.
Love it.
So that's my dissertation diary. And I also have my everyday journals. This is the thing that comes with me everywhere. This is an A5 portfolio from Paper Republic also, but in the Venezia leather. And this is what houses my everyday commonplace book and my planner. I have a Hobonichi Teco daily planner. And what's really nice is that this is essentially replaced a diary because it's got a page per day. And every single day I write down, today I choose to be, today I am grateful for. I check in on the goals for the week. I write down today's big 3, and then I just do a brain dump.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, that's essentially my process. I also have a little passport journal that I keep in my bag if I have thoughts on the go. So that way I'm not offloading it onto my phone. I'm offloading it onto something physical. And essentially, like once a week on Sunday when I do my weekly reset, I go through any notes that I put in my commonplace book or I put in my passport journal and to see if there's anything I want to process and work through if there was a question that I wanted to ponder. But sometimes I'm just putting things in there that came to my mind. Just wanted to offload it somewhere.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah.
What's your process?
What's
your journal ecosystem?
Oh, okay. Mine is so I'll start with my A4. This is a customized trifold A4 from Paper Republic, and this houses all of my research notes. So similar structure to yours. It's got PhD research notes. It's got article research notes. It's got papers from lectures, schedules, all that kind of stuff that I print out and have ready and available. I also like to keep in here, I've got a whole lot of cards and things like that here that I keep in from friends and just cards from people who wished me good luck when I started my PhD. So every now and again when I need a little booster, I have those in there and they're available to me. I then have my OG first Paper Republic journal. Oh, sorry, I didn't say. This is in the A4 is in the cognac. My OG Paper Republic, this was the first Paper Republic that I ever bought. This is their, oh gosh, what's it called?
Grand Voyager.
Thank you. Yes, the Grand Voyager in the extra large. This was the first Paper Republic that I ever purchased. It now holds my content journal. So anytime I have ideas for content, Substacks, YouTube, anything like that, that goes in here, and it just sits on my desk. It doesn't go anywhere, and it's in the beautiful chestnut color, which is patinaed so beautifully over the years. But that was, for the longest time, that was kind of my daily pages journal. But that is shifted now to this A5 portfolio from Paper Republic in the Venezia color. And this has my daily pages. So I usually use this and my How to Live an Artful Life in the morning first thing with my coffee, I sit down and I write out a page a day in this journal. It's also been a really great place for me to keep cards and letters that I get. Me and a few friends will send physical handwritten letters to each other. And so I put those in here as kind of little memory moments. So that's been really, really lovely. And then I have my planner journal in chestnut. It's the trifold from Paper Republic. So it's chestnut and the cognac. And in here I have my planner, my PhD rough notes book, and then also my star chart for my PhD. So that's where I keep that settled in there. But yes, that's got my planner, my diary, all that kind of thing. And then this is my little pocket journal. It's the Grand Voyager in the pocket size Grand Voyager. It's got my commonplace book in here and a rough notes notebook. And it's also got a little insert where I keep all my cards. So this actually has now become my wallet that I travel with. So I don't travel with a wallet. I just travel with my little journal. And
excellent.
That is it.
Okay, so one of the comments that I see oftentimes on social media with these journal ecosystems, and especially, having multiple journals, is the criticism that this is contributing to consumerism. What's your reaction to that?
I mean, they're not wrong, right? You could do the same, like with what we have 5 journals or 6 journals for, you could do with one journal.
Yeah.
And that's how it started for me. I just had the one. I had this one, and it had everything in it. I think there certainly came a point for me when I felt like there were certain parts of my life, and this was way before when I was working at Google. We had accepted that we were running, and I was doing my master's. There came a point in my life where I just felt like I needed the distinctions between the spaces, and it was almost a physicality in the spatial recognition of what I'm focusing on, rather than just having it in one space. Because once writing became a process for my, journaling as a part of my therapy, but also journaling as a part of my research, that process extended across all the facets of my life. And yes, you can do it in one book. You don't have to have 5, 6 journals. I think I just got to a point where I wanted to keep my planner trifold, which this one that has my diary and my calendar, my planner, my notes for my meetings. I know that when I'm opening this, I'm jumping into admin mode.
Yeah.
It's that kind of spatial shift, that physical spatial shift that occurs when I'm opening a particular kind of journal or an association with a particular kind of journal. And we talk about this all the time in terms of setting up workspaces.
Yeah.
If you listen to a particular playlist while you're writing, or you use a particular candle, there have been studies that show that those sensory shifts actually make an impact on the way that you approach the work. And even if the process of writing is the same, depending on what you're doing, there is a difference in the spatial idea about it for me.
It's creating a physical and mental connection, like creating a new neural pathway that has an association between a setting, a sound, a smell, a touch, etc., and kind of encapsulating that in a particular type of action. So I'm no scientist. Somebody can verify this or refute it, but it makes sense to me. I also think that it comes down to use. So most of the time, the challenge that I see with the consumerism conversation is not so much, so it centers always on the purchase, the point of purchase, that you are consuming and paying too much or paying too often for these things, which I think is fair. And I think you've covered all the points with regards to that I would add to that. The conversation lacks a longer view of how we interact with and value a physical object.
Yeah.
Moo's dreaming.
She has things to say about consumerism.
Indeed, I just disturbed her. Because if we think about it, I was thinking about this in relation to, I've just purchased a fully bespoke notebook that's being made by Paper Republic. And it's the most money I've ever spent on any kind of leather product that was not for the utilitarian purpose of riding horses.
So fair. Yeah.
And I was thinking about it in relation to riding, because, you know, you'd buy a custom pair of boots in order to ride every day, and they would be worn. They would bend and break to the way that your leg and your foot and your ankle and all of that moves and is mechanically going to function.
Yeah. When
they start to fall apart a year, 2 years later, we see that as, you know, it's lived out its lifespan. You know, cost per use was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of see a journal in a very similar way, except its cost per use is infinite, because I don't see a time in which it will break down.
No, quite right.
What comes to mind is that there has to be an intentional interaction with the purchase and asking yourself, am I going to use this often enough and for long enough for it to be cost efficient, goods efficient? You know, this is using a leather product. If we want to have the conversation about environmentalism, you know, what kind of footprint does purchasing this product have? What kind of impact does that have on the business that then, you know, changes their practices in order to produce more? If you are making the purchase with the intention that this is something that is going to become a part of my daily practice, it's going to become an integral part of my life, why not invest in it and invest in the craftsmanship in the same way that we would invest in technology, the same way that we invest in an iPhone or a computer that has a much greater environmental footprint? And oftentimes I think the conversation narrows down to this one personal decision and points a finger at the person making the purchase, rather than thinking about the wider systems that have devalued this practice and why we see, you know, technology as being worthwhile and being worth paying thousands of dollars for a computer that is extracted, you know, that is using extracted goods from, you know, harsh labor practices.
Yeah.
And I just think about just trying to take a wider view of the decision itself, and to say, you know, I am going to prioritize putting my money towards a small business, you know, paying for a journal from a bespoke, you know, house within Paper Republic that really only has like 2 to 4 people that work in it.
Yeah.
And have been, you know, expertly trained and are maintaining the craft of leatherwork. That's something that matters to me. It might not matter to somebody else, but it matters to me. And that's something I want to invest in. Go ahead.
I think you're quite right. I think you've touched on a couple of things that are interesting, and the the two things that I want to pull out are uh, the cost, the cost of something like this, and what that cost essentially means. Because I think we're very quick to, and I'm so guilty of this. I'm very quick to create a very big, broad brush strokes claim on consumerism is the enemy, and it is in a lot of senses. It wasn't until I it wasn't until I met my husband that I really learned the value of buy good, buy once. And
Yeah.
that is something that has stuck with me sort of from the beginning, and that's applicable to anything that I end up purchasing today, or that I've ended up purchasing in the last couple of years. I This first Paper Republic I bought 4 years ago now, or something like that. It's held up, it's looking beautiful. I'm loving the way that it actually is aging, but it still has a use. Whereas, as I say, I have a full box of archives of used journals that have just fitted into these spaces, these covers. And in that, there is an aspect of these journals have a flexibility of use. It's not just that you use them for one thing and then you move on from them.
Yeah.
There is a multiplicity of use there. But secondly, and one thing I really want to bring to attention, is that something you said about the craft and keeping the craft alive,
Yes.
because this is something that I think is so important for us to maintain in an era where things are getting taken over digitally all the time. That physical manual labor, that skill that so many merchants, not just in producing leather goods or journals or anything like that, it's in jewelry, it's in clothing, it's in anything, that craft, that work is something that is being passed off to a machine to produce 50, hundreds, thousands of identical items. And I don't know, there's something about the idea of making sure that those merchants that have taken the time and effort to learn this craft and keep it alive, keep that tradition alive of creating something that they've probably learned from generation to generation to generation, is just something that I would much rather put my money towards than another top from Zara, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because this is exactly what is kind of digested on in 100 Years of Solitude. It's this whole idea of things like, and I won't go down the AI trend because I think everyone is so sick and tired of talking about AI, myself included, even though it's important that we keep that conversation going. But in 100 Years of Solitude, it's the introduction of the railroad that throws the town into a dizzy and shifts the way that the community all of a sudden interacts with itself. I'm not saying the railroad wasn't a great invention. It absolutely was, and it enabled so many things for so many people. But in the face of new inventions and new technology, we lose that element of how you would hand make anything.
Yeah.
How you would support that craft with anything. I mean, I was taught to sew as a child. I'm grateful for that every single day, because now I do end up, being able to fix my own clothing. But can I make my own clothing? No, I can't. And I wish I could, because how great would that be? Yeah.
I think about my grandmother, because she's a she's a image consultant, and she's also a couture designer. So she designs custom clothing. Most of her clients are incredibly wealthy. You know, these are people that work in tech and government, etc., and, you know, can afford that kind of bespoke craft. And I think it's wonderful for her livelihood and, you know, for her bank account. But I think about how few people that, you know, would have loved to have been a designer get the chance, because we don't invest at an individual or even a societal level in independent craft.
Yeah.
And when and where we can, if we can afford to support that kind of craftsmanship, I think that we should. And absolutely. Be intentional about where we're purchasing and what we're purchasing, the intent behind the purchase, etc. And so, yeah, it's just something that's been on my mind because I see it all the time on the journal ecosystem videos, and this essential kind of need to perform how much you've used the journal. Nobody's asking you how many times you wore a jacket or how many times you carried a bag, but for some reason the conversation comes up a lot when it comes to journals. So it's just something I wanted to ponder.
I think it's really interesting because you're quite right. How often do we talk about use per handbag? How often do we talk about use per item of clothing that we wear? How often do we talk about use per anything that we have? Technology. Yeah. And technology is a thing that boggles my mind every single time. I've had the same iPad for like plus 10 years. And this, yes, it's on its last legs, but that has been, you know, for 10 plus years, this thing has been my constant companion through getting my undergrad certificate, my master's, and, you know, the first part of my PhD. But I think this is a whole different podcast. I'm going to reel myself in because I can feel the consumerist rant coming into my bloodstream. The spirit is getting bristled, so I'm going to reel myself back in on this.
Okay, so what's our advice for somebody wanting to get into a practice of journaling? Somebody that has never really tried it, or, you know, maybe they've written a diary here and there.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I just think I think the thing that really got me into it was doing a daily page, doing some form of daily pages, whether it's Katie Hessel's How to Live an Artful Life or The Artist Way, or even just sitting down and dedicating 5 minutes a day to writing. And it doesn't have to be longer than that. It doesn't even have to be 5 minutes. It could be 3 minutes. It could be 30 seconds. But just having that kind of set aside time to do it, I think that's when it becomes a part of the habit, and all of a sudden it's one of those things that people don't think that it would work until you kind of sit down and you do spend the time doing it. I'll never forget at the New Haven Writing Retreat, that first day where we did the warm-up journaling prompt. And I said to everyone, when we are going to write, I think we're going to write for like 5 minutes. And we put on the timer. The first 30 seconds, people were writing really slowly. They were thinking about what they wanted to write. They were conscious of the fact that they're sitting there writing. And it was almost instantaneous. It was like that. 30 seconds went past and everyone just went at it. The writing just came so fluidly, and I was just watching this, and my mind was blown to see something like that. And I genuinely think if you just set aside the time to do it and get into a practice of doing it, it's like brushing your teeth. Hopefully you brush your teeth every day.
Okay, what's your one favorite prompt?
Oh, that's hard. What is my one favorite prompt?
Something that gets somebody started when they're sitting down for that daily pages. Give them a prompt. Let's give them one.
Okay. One prompt that I always turn to if I need it, I ask myself, what is not feeling aligned today?
Ooh, interesting.
Mm.
I have the very opposite framing.
Go for it. You go.
So instead of, what am I grateful for today? I always ask at the beginning of study sessions, and I ask myself in my journal every single day, what is something you are looking forward to today?
Mm.
And I have found that, especially in the study sessions, it takes everyone a minute because they start with a negative framing of like, oh, I have to do this thing. Or, oh, today's going to be such a grind. And I'm like, you have to say one thing that you're looking forward to. It can be your afternoon, cup of tea. It doesn't matter, but you have to have something, one little North Star for the day. And I started applying this particularly to my research to try to reframe my relationship to it and saying, what is something I'm looking forward to about working on my dissertation today? And it's simple, but it makes a big difference.
I really like that, actually. And maybe I should clarify that my prompt doesn't always go for it sounds negative, but the reason I do it is to shift I'm very much a kind of person that gives my energy to things that I shouldn't be giving my energy to. So if I identify what doesn't feel aligned, I know what not to give my energy to.
Interesting. So I went to that talk. I keep yammering on about it with Maya Raichura. She's a mental fitness coach. And at the beginning of the day, she says, you need to write down, today I choose to be, or today I choose. Because the brain has a really hard time. Basically, if you identify it, it wants to move towards it. So she basically said, you need to make it an action, make it a choice. So for example, when I was working on my dissertation, I was submitting chapter 4. It's interesting to go back and look at it because every day I said, today I choose to be tranquil.
I love that.
And it has to be something that you can actually act into.
Absolutely.
And it's also totally not framing it as today I am, because that's not an action. So it's saying today I choose. And
to go into it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's just reframed the way I think about the way I sit down in my journal in the morning and what I give space to.
I really like that. I really, really like that. I think that's really powerful. It's interesting because I always feel so much better after I've sat down and reflected or done some journaling or written out. I feel like my brain seems to be this kind of buzzing noise of 1,000 different thoughts. And as soon as I kind of sit down in front of a page, you know how you were saying like, oh, what do I write in front of this blank page? I get really excited about the blank page because I'm kind of like, great, here is everything from my brain just plunked onto it. Now it's your problem. It's not for me to. But what is the one thing that you've noticed about yourself since you've been journaling?
Ooh. What I've learned is that in basically every area of my life, I have, whether it's writing, whether it's going into my journal, I tend to consolidate my thoughts before they go on the page. And figuring out a way to like let it just kind of like get out, that's the part that I still find very challenging. And so that's the kind of lesson that I'm walking away with. It's very difficult for me to kind of elongate. And I don't know if I necessarily use the word that it's, I guess, a desire for control as much as a desire for order.
Fair. Absolutely. I think the one thing that I've noticed about myself with journaling is that I love to spend time in my own brain. I love to spend time with my own thoughts, and I have a lot of them. I have a lot of thoughts about a lot of things. And one thing I've really loved about journaling is that it's taken me out of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's allowed me to be more engaged with the things around me and the people around me and what people are maybe experiencing and thinking. So every time, or something I've developed in the last couple of months is whenever I'm faced with a conflict, and I try and ask in the journal, what is the other person feeling? What is their perspective? Ooh. And I write that out. What would X person be feeling in this situation? What is prompting them to act in the way that they're acting, and take myself out of the equation. And in that way, that sense of observation has been so great. And if there's one lesson that I can leave our listeners and viewers with, is journaling is not actually about you, it's about your relationship with the outside world.
I think that's a perfect place to end the episode on.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Please do subscribe to this podcast, and we will see you all in the next one.